Hello, and welcome to another episode of Below the Hospital, an Amy podcast on sterile processing and the issues that sterile processing technicians face today. I am your host, Garland-Rhea Grisby Sr., sterile processing manager at Sutter Health, CPMC, and a long-standing Amy member. In this podcast, I interview folks from around the industry about sterile processing and ask informative questions about our profession. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Nupur Jain. Nupur is Director of Validation Engineering Services at Intuitive Surgical. He holds an engineering degree from UC Davis and an MBA from Santa Clara University. He is also Amy faculty and served as co-chair of the Amy Cleaning of Reusable Medical Devices Working Group during the publication of Amy ST98. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So let's go ahead and kick it off and just start with what I would say a basic question, as some of our listeners may have some experience. So, how has the sterile processing field changed with the advent of surgical robotics?
Yes, I'm so glad to be talking to you. Thank you so much for the time today. I want to start by first acknowledging and thanking all the sterile processing professionals, especially today, because this week is Sterile Processing Week, and your work truly matters. Not only has sterile processing changed as we've witnessed, but we've also witnessed medical devices evolve over the years. So robotics was introduced 25 to 30 years ago, and with that, SPDs have also had to change. And we can discuss this evolution in, using 6 M's, the Six Sigma manufacturing process way, right? So man or people, there's a lot more skills, a lot more training that's being offered to sterile processing departments today than ever before. And that is amazing. That's really good for our teams out there performing reprocessing. The second M, machines, and the equipment that you see in sterile processing today did not exist a few years ago. Now we have better tools, better inspection tools, better flushing tools. We have washer disinfectors, ultrasonics that have flushing capabilities. Just a bunch of new technology and tools that are out there today. The third one, materials. You can see the detergents are much better today, much more effective, with better surfactants. So the chemicals have improved. Methods, I want to give a shout out to all the medical device manufacturers. The type of instructions that are out there for sterile processing departments today have improved drastically from just even 15 years ago. So we have better methods that should be followed. And then even those instructions now required to have human factors testing to them, which was not a requirement in the past. So way better methods. We've automated methods. We have manual with a little bit of mechanical methods. So definitely an improvement there. Then the fifth M, measurement. So we have protein verification methods. Back then, there was no process verification, right?
Not at all.
Yeah, at least now we have visual inspection, protein verification, if you're using some sort of protein kits that are available. The space that's dedicated to SPDs today and the organization has improved.
So you mentioned it, right? So what hasn't changed in the field?
That's a really good question, right? Part of it is how the value that SPD provides is seen. I don't think everyone understands the value that the sterile processing departments provide, but they truly are needed, and not everyone appreciates that. The skill level, there's only a few states, even in the US, that require certain skill levels for SPDs. That's not standardized today. Again, it's an improvement from a few years ago, but we're not quite there completely.
Yeah, and I appreciate you mentioned that. Even in the outset, giving a shout out to SPD folks, being that it's our week, right? I had a conversation with one of my newer employees, been in the field for maybe 2 years. He didn't even know that there was a sterile processing week, right? And so it's important for us to show ourselves that we appreciate ourselves, right? So yeah, that is something that has not changed much. It's just the appreciation and being, you know, more visible, or folks in the hospital or any setting knowing that sterile processing folks.
I'll tell you one more thing there. I'll add one more is I feel like there's a lot more collaboration between medical device manufacturers and the SPD and the instructions that bridge them, but there's still a lot more work to be done there.
Yes, I remember when I was first in the field, we didn't know where the manufacturer's instructions came from. We didn't know who, we knew it came from the manufacturer, but we didn't know who took part in it. Did anybody else outside of the vendor have any, say
Yeah.
so? And now it is different, right? Now folks are listening, and even some vendors have gone as far as, okay, we can't change our IFU. However, we can give you a customer letter that
Mm-hmm.
tells you that this is acceptable and your process and practice is acceptable, because you don't necessarily have the tools that you need that we require in our IFU. So that has been a plus. Of it are actually doing more collaboration. So appreciate
Very
that, man.
true. Thank you.
So what are some of the biggest challenges associated with sterilizing these new devices?
These new devices can be sterilized with different methods, right? And I think that's part of the challenges that come in. Um, IFUs is needed. Instructions for use, they're important. They need to fit the environment that they are going to be used in. But sometimes they require new tools, new packaging materials, or new cycles. Training to those new tools, methods, etc., is something that is sometimes taken for granted, right? Especially when we're talking about sterile processing departments where there's very high attrition. The rate of attrition, especially in sterile processing departments. So how do we create not only first the right training for those tools, for those new sterilization methods or the new devices, but also making sure that the training is provided at the right frequency so that um, as new folks join, we are still training them to use the tools correctly, right? So I think that's part of it. New tools also means new PMs, right? New preventative maintenance programs or new risk levels, and all of that are, I would say those are the three big challenges with any new sterilization methods, right? One, how do you make sure people are trained and frequently trained? Number two, the PM of that tool and the risk level involved with that tool.
Yeah, I tell people all the time. It, it, the device the device upgrade is not the same as the old one. That's why it's a device upgrade, right? So this may, or more than likely, will require some additional steps that the other one didn't. Why? Because there may have been something that was noticed before that it was too late with the original version of whatever piece of equipment that
Yeah,
is. So it's
fair.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Getting folks out of that mindset as, oh, this is the same. No, it's not. So, for the technicians and scrub techs that are listening to this episode, where should they go if they have questions about a specific piece of equipment or type of equipment?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I'm going to sound like a broken record here. I'm sorry. But IFUs, right? The instructions for use is so important. Number one, as a medical device manufacturer, I can tell you, we spend so much time and effort on creating IFUs that have human factors testing, or that they will be used in the right environment and can be followed. Right? That's essential. That's a requirement now. So we're a great place. A lot of medical device manufacturers provide now wall charts. So using those wall charts, putting them up in the right location. Um, I think those are really good sources. I know as a manufacturer of a robotic instrument and endoscope product, we have a department that provides training to SPD folks only on our product. That way you can take advantage and say, you know what, I'm not sure if I'm doing this step correctly.
Right.
And then you can have that training provided to you.
And that is important, right? And I know we all sound like a broken record. Talk about IFUs, IFUs, IFUs,
Yeah.
IFUs, but it is key It is truly key, right? Because if you don't know what type of gas to put in your car and you put the wrong gas in, now you've ruined your car, right?
Yep.
It doesn't matter how new the car is. And so it goes with IFUs. And it's important to stay in those IFUs and to continue to see if there's updates, because sometimes there are updates and sometimes the manufacturers aren't able to distribute those updates as fast as they hit the market. So IFUs are important. It's important for us as individuals, as departments, as technicians, as surgical techs, as managers, to see if we have the most current up to date IFU. I can't say that enough. So yes, we do sound like a broken record there, but it's a good broken record.
Yeah.
So how do you anticipate the sterile processing field will change or evolve as robotics become more advanced?
In particular, I would say the 6 M's that I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was measurement, and we have a lot of opportunity there. How do we make sure that the process we just ran, the cleaning process or the sterilization process, has actually run correctly? For sterilization, we have chemical indicators, we have biological indicators, we do cycle printout, but on the first step of it, cleaning, we don't have as much measurement tools available to sterile processing departments. So that process verification is is critical. And that's where I think there's the biggest opportunity for change. In Europe, they do process verification by doing process qualification, where they will take a device, clean it, and then they will look for protein, how much residual protein is on that product.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that at different frequencies, once a year, let's say. And they will use that as a way to say, my process is effective. And I know it's effective because I have X amount of protein on my devices. We just published a paper with 10 years of data on protein verification done by hospitals that is such powerful data. It's such a great measurement tool to say that, yes, if you follow this process, you will get a clean device. We have yet to implement something like that in the US, So I think that's an evolution we still need to take on.
Yeah, I've had conversations with plenty of senior leaders that are from Europe, and they've been saying the same thing. They're like, we've been here already. Like we've done this already. The U.S. needs to get on board with some of the things that are being done in other places. As far as like cleaning verification and process verification, I tell my folks, I bring them on board, right? But I tell them how important it is, and when they look at it initially, they're like, oh, another task. It's going to add more time. We're already short staffed. But once they see the point, and when they
Yep.
catch a device that they thought was clean, and they see that hey, there's some protein left, then they have a different view, and they say, okay, this makes sense. Yes, we need to do it. And then they speak to their peers and say, look, this works, and this is why we need it. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's also a cost benefit analysis, right? As soon as you show that you were leaving protein behind with skipping one step,
Yep.
it's easy. It just becomes a very logical discussion of like why this is really needed.
Yep. You tell them, listen, it's going to cost right now, but it'll save money later.
Exactly. Yes.
Better to spend that money now than on a lawsuit, right?
Yeah.
So, how can sterile processing department managers prepare their teams for these challenges?
Yeah. There's so many forums now than ever before. Amy offers Senate committees that you can join as a sterile processing department. Those are so helpful. It's a great way for me to learn about sterile processing, to learn about the other side that I am actually teaming up with to create an IFU or a product that can be cleaned, right? So joining those forums, either with Amy or HSPA, are super important. It's a great way to grow in this field. The other
Absolutely.
one, yeah. The other one is really, understanding the product. I've talked to people who don't necessarily even know what a forceps does.
Mm.
It's it's important to know the why behind what you're doing. I know some people are very passionate in this field for the patient, which is amazing. But the why goes a little bit deeper than that, right? Which
Yes,
is
it
if
does.
I leave protein behind over here, what could that mean to that patient? And knowing the use of that product is super important. So understanding clinical application, I think for sterile processing departments is also very important.
Yep. And you know what? You're right. You're right because there are some where it's the same IFU that it was 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it says the same things that it said or which was available back then and not updated. There was one IFU I was looking at. The only difference, it was two IFUs. The only difference was the size in the device. One said sterile gloves, the other one didn't. The other one said nitrile gloves. One said sterile water, the other one didn't. So I went back to the manufacturer. I said, well, why is this? And they looked and they said, oh, yeah, we have to fix that. I said, yeah, because if they're, sure, it makes sense across the
Yeah.
board because if you have somebody that's cleaning one, why would they need different gloves, right? It just stay sterile gloves across the board then if that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then also knowing what the equipment is used for is very important. I had one of my technicians go and watch a surgery yesterday, in fact, and he came back, eyes were wide open, and
Mm-hmm.
he says, "I get it now." Right? He was able to see what they needed, why they needed it, why it was important, what it was used for, and he has a different view of his own job and why it's important.
Yeah,
Go,
it's so
go ahead.
important to build. Yeah, I wanted to say it's so important to build pride in what you do, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, it just becomes work, and
Right.
it doesn't become powerful work or prideful work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
they say if you love what you do, it's not work.
Yes.
Um, so again, we have to appreciate ourselves. If we don't, nobody else. So well, Nupur, I appreciate you taking the time out. I know you're a very busy individual. Um, we definitely appreciate the work that you do in helping our industry to get to the next level. So thank you for taking the time out to be with us today. So, folks, as usual, I hope this episode has been useful. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. If you want to support the podcast, you can find us at Below the Hospital on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Amy Ray. Until then, see you when I see you.